Got it. I think that took care of it. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Joyce. Okay, so I think we're recording now. Let me start over again. It's May 19th, 2022. This is the collective bargaining negotiations between Pasco Hernando State College and the United Faculty of Florida. It's again 2:30 in the afternoon here. Let's get started. So Gary, we did get your email from earlier this week with the union's proposals on salary compensation, some other issues. Candidly, we've looked at that with our team and been evaluating it somewhat, but are still discussing it. But I thought probably the place to start would be to turn it over to you guys to kind of walk through each of your proposals. Most of it seems pretty straightforward, but in case there are any questions from the administration team, and if you need, I don't know if you have the ability to put these up on the screen.
Yeah, I have them. I have them all, Brian. I can bring them up.
Okay.
Okay, well, if we're ready, good afternoon to everyone. I would like to start by yielding a little time to Caitlin Guiley to kind of talk about, we're gonna do our presentation, but the background behind what we're proposing. So Caitlin.
Thanks, Gary. We became college professors because we love sharing our passion for our subjects with our students. But we also went into college teaching because it is a respected profession. We went to school for a long time and earned industry credentials and gained real world experiences so that we could make a comfortable living, not just a living wage. None of us were expecting to get rich teaching at a state or a community college, but we were also not planning on just scraping by. How we spend our money reflects what we value as a college community. The state allocation for fiscal year 22-23 is an opportunity for PHSC. We can take advantage of the increase in recurring state money to become a beacon of hope in Florida. We could become the standard for excellence. I understand that the past decade has been a very difficult time for the administration to manage our budget. The political climate in Florida and inflation have created many challenges, and the administration has had to make some tough decisions. But every year you say, we would give you a raise if we could. Well, now you can, so let's do it. Let's lead the way and prioritize our college family and pay our people what they deserve. So I have some economic data. If I could, let me go here. Can I share the screen? Okay. So this is just some background for what we're proposing. These are economic indicators from Pasco and Hernando counties for this year. So in the US, we build our wealth primarily through home ownership. And as we're kind of all aware, home prices have been skyrocketing. Currently in Pasco County, the median home sale price is $342,000, and Hernando, it's $300,000. If you'd like to purchase a $300,000 house, you would basically need a $50,000 minimum salary in order to afford that, which also would, I think, be kind of a stretch. So $50,000 is really the salary that would be required to be a homeowner in Pasco or Hernando counties. This is information from the Economic Policy Institute. This is a family budget calculator. They look at different types of families in different counties. They compare it with the federal poverty line and then the supplemental poverty measure, which is a kind of more accurate indicator of what is a reasonable minimum salary. And for Pasco County, for one adult and one child, so half a family, the monthly cost would be $4,861, which is a $58,000 salary for the year. I have compared some of our salary data to other states, but it's kind of apples and oranges, and really our main competitors for employers is K-12 in the area. There's an NEA report cited in the Florida Phoenix that said that the average salary of Florida's K-12 teachers was $44,000, which placed it at 16 among 50 states. That's the starting salary, is 44,000. The average salary overall is 49,000, and this is 49th among 50 states. So that's just to kind of give some background about where our numbers are coming from in terms of our proposals. Is basically, if you want to live a reasonable lifestyle in Pasco or Hernando County, $50,000 is a decent amount, and it would be competitive with our K-12 counterparts. Okay.
Thank you, Caitlin. What I'm going to start with, the simpler things at first, and then we'll save the load calculation and salary schedule to the last part of the presentation. So let me share my screen with you.
In the meantime, could I make a just very polite request that when people are talking, they put their cameras on, just in general?
Okay, the first two, the COVID is the first one I want to talk about. It's pretty straightforward. We know that the college has been very supportive of trying to do some COVID related trainings. And so this simply says that faculty will develop and implement trainings for faculty pertaining to issues surrounding COVID pandemic. Our topics should include, but not limited to, mental health, instructional methodologies, healthcare, and COVID safety. And our proposal is that the faculty that will be developing and leading these trainings would earn $200 per contact hour for instruction. And then faculty attending these trainings will earn $50 per contact hour for the course. And these trainings, of course, can be offered in any modality from face-to-face to Zoom to online, whichever works best for the situation. And so our proposal here is fairly straightforward. And it's my understanding that there is some money to provide these trainings. So what I think we should do is just kind of open the floor to see if there's any questions before I move on to each different proposal.
Yeah, on that one, Gary, I'm not sure, so make sure I understand, is there any process contemplated as of yet for how, a course or a training gets approved? I see here that you've got, faculty is to develop and teach and obviously attend, get and paid for those things, but is there already something at the college? And I haven't talked to the administration about this, where these trainings have already in the pipeline, or is these are things that we want to suggest, or looking for administration to suggest that, hey, we need trainings on this topic, that topic, and go from there?
I'm not aware that there already is a setup for this. This would something that probably had to be added, of course, to this proposal of how the process goes about. And so that would have to be, something that we talk about with the administration.
Yeah, and I think that's where I'm going to. So I'm assuming that the union does foresee a role of the administration there in terms of signing off on the ideas that maybe faculty can come up with or administration comes up with, and solicit faculty to help if we implement this proposal.
Yeah, that's the way we see it.
Okay. Anybody on the administration team have any questions on that or comments wanted to discuss at this point? It doesn't sound like it, Gary. If you want to go on to the next one, once we
Okay.
have our caucus, we very well might come back with some
Okay,
questions.
no problem. So let me go to the mentoring. And this one's also pretty straightforward about faculty mentoring. This has been a discussion in the past. The Faculty Development Institute, in cooperation with the Faculty Senate, and this is something the Faculty Senate has been talking about recently, will revise and implement previously developed faculty mentoring program, for newly hired full-time faculty during the next school year. The clear expectation, I can't talk about it, I'm very sorry. Clear expectations and training for members will be documented. And we're proposing that the mentors would earn $500 stipend per mentor per semester. And then the mentees would earn $500 per semester during the process. The mentoring occurred during the first 4 semesters of the mentee's employment, and the mentor and the mentee will meet at least 4 times per semester. And then the final point is the mentor and mentee will earn 16 hours towards certification or recertification for completing that whole program.
And is this, again, I've talked to the administration on this one. Is this something there's some sort of procedure in place already, or is this something entirely new?
Well, the Faculty Development Institute has been in place, and the Faculty Senate, I believe, has been working with them to talk about how to implement this. If somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what the case is.
Yeah, Faculty Senate has a draft of the program. I don't know, Misty, I think Misty's here. Do you want to say anything about what's been developed by Faculty Senate to call you out?
Yeah, just real quickly, the document is in place and it's been in draft form for, I believe, 2 years now. We just have not been able to implement it because there is a stipend that is in the document, which needs to be negotiated by the union.
Okay. Anybody on administration side have any questions or comments at this time? Doesn't look as though. Gary, why don't you go ahead on to the next proposal?
Go ahead and talk about the tuition waiver. Now, we've discussed this in the past, and so we wanted to bring it up here. Yeah. There we go. Bear with me, I got a whole bunch of screens here. The free tuition for faculty, spouses, and children, as I said, we've discussed this in the past, and we're bringing it up because we feel it's a really important thing. And this basically would say that the faculty and their eligible dependents would receive tuition reimbursement or tuition waiver for the tuition fees paid for courses taken at Pasco Hernandez State College, with the provision that the faculty member and the eligible dependents meet the admission requirements set by the Board of Trustees, and the faculty member and eligible dependents present a certificate of satisfactory completion of all courses taken pursuant of this rule. And then the second point there is that the eligible dependents shall only include the spouse and any dependent children under the age of 26. And dependent children are those who primarily are permanently disabled and who are living at home with a full-time employee or eligible at any age. Again, I think this is fairly straightforward, but I'll address any questions you may have.
Yeah, I recall that we did discuss this. It was some time ago, and I have to look at my notes from that discussion. In the meantime, does anybody on the administration side have questions or comments on the tuition proposal from the union? I suspect we may have more comments and questions, Gary, after our caucus. Why don't you go ahead to the next one?
All right. And bring up. This is also something that we had brought up in the past, and we still feel it's an important issue. So we wanted to readdress it since we're doing the whole compensation package right now, is the idea of parental leave. And we're asking that a employee shall be granted 2 weeks of paid leave to be used following the birth, adoption, or placement into foster care with an employee of a child. This leave shall not be debited against any other form of paid leave. So again, a fairly straightforward proposal, but I'll entertain any questions you might have.
One of the questions that comes up in this area for me is I noticed that the language says 2 weeks of paid leave following the birth, adoption, placement. We have, of course, the FMLA out there for eligible employees that's unpaid at current time. But in the context of the FMLA, sometimes the leave is taken even for the birth prior to the birth of the child, and usually, at least a few days before, if not a little bit more, and sometimes more if there's complications. So on this one, is the proposal, is it more narrow than the FMLA, I guess, and that's just more what I would call like bonding leave after the placement or birth, or is
Yes.
it?
Yes, I think that's what we're aiming at. And we're seeing more and more employers nationwide, both private and public, that are implementing at least 2 weeks paid leave following the birth of a child. And so, we'd like to be a leader in this. And so we would like to also propose that Pastor Fernando adopt this as part of the personnel policy.
Okay, we will talk about that. I'm sure it is a little easier in my experience to administer it anyway, if it's more of the bonding, because you generally know the timeline and what's happening, as opposed to other types of medical leave or the pre-birth type leave. So we'll talk about that and have some feedback for you after the caucus.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, to our little heavier duty stuff here. And I'm going to turn this back over to Caitlin because she's been working on the salary proposal. So let me put up the description first of all for you, Caitlin. The floor is yours, Caitlin Guiley. Your mic's on, Caitlin.
Do you have the load calculations? Let's do that first, and then I'll do the Excel
Okay.
file.
Sorry, pulled the wrong
That's
one.
okay. I don't have that handy, so I'll
Yeah,
let
give
you.
me
put
a
it up.
second here. There we go.
There we go. Okay. So we are proposing that a contact hour is a contact hour for instruction. Right now, we have 2 pay equity issues for faculty. One is that labs and clinicals have a multiplier for how they contribute to your load calculation. So our load for full-time faculty is 15 credit hours per semester, but there are some classes like labs and clinicals where the contact hour and the credit hour are not equivalent. So if you teach a 3-credit lecture, you meet 75 minutes, usually twice a week, which is 150 minutes. So a contact hour or a credit hour is 50 contact minutes. If you teach a lab, we have hour and 40-minute or 100-minute labs, but they count as 1 credit for the student, but towards your load, they count as a credit and a half, which is 75 minutes. So that means if you're teaching a chemistry lab or a biology lab or a nursing lab, you're working for 25 contact minutes for free. Also in clinicals, when our health program faculty and nursing faculty are in clinical sites, they get paid 87.5% of the time that they're with the students. We feel this is an inequity. The lab multipliers are really kind of a relic of when graduate assistants taught labs, but we're full-time faculty. We have the credentials. We don't have teaching assistants. I teach labs. I can tell you it's a lot of work in the lab, physical. It's a lot of prep time and it's a lot of grading time. So I don't think it's really appropriate for us to get paid less for those contact minutes. Nursing faculty can also speak to the amount of work that goes into clinicals and just basically the inequity that you're working and not getting paid at the same rate as someone teaching history or composition or psychology or whatever. The other issue is some of our courses are not exactly 3 credits. So for instance, some calculus courses may be 4 credits. If you're a math faculty teaching 4-credit calculus classes, you might teach 4 credit courses, which adds up to 16, which doesn't fit in our little box. And so those faculty will work 16 credits, but only get paid for 15 because 1 credit is not an additional course enrollment. So they can't make a contract for that 1 credit. But that means you're teaching 50 minutes a week and you're not getting paid for it. And it's, it's a more credit class, there's more grading, there's more prep. So what we're proposing is that instead of 15 credit hours being the full load for full-time faculty, for teaching college credit, it would be 225 instructional hours, which if you teach 5 3-credit composition classes, 15 times 15, we have 15 contact hours a week, 15 weeks is 225 instructional hours. This would not affect our faculty that teach 5 3-credit lectures. But if you teach, let's say 16 credits, because you're a math professor, you'd have an additional 15 contact hours per semester, and those would be paid at the overload rate, because now you're at over 225. If you have, let's say you teach 4 credit classes and 1 3-credit class, because it's a separate enrollment, that would go into the supplemental contract. But for nursing and health programs, you would just add up whatever contact hours they have. Anything over 225 is paid at the supplemental rate, the adjunct rate. And if it's a separate enrollment, you would have a separate contract for that. Does that make sense? Any questions? Oh, and technical credit is 300 instructional hours. We have a clinical contact hour, instructional hour is 60 minutes. I'm not sure if that makes sense within the clinicals. So if that's open to negotiation, I'm not sure what would make sense. I know they have 12-hour clinicals. I'm not sure if it would make sense to have a 50-minute contact hour or 60 minutes is more appropriate. But we're proposing that any hours over 225 be paid at the adjunct rate, whether it's a overload course or just additional hours in your load.
I think I understand that. Does anybody on the administration have any questions, comments at this point?
This is something we had the MOU for the committee to address, and it was a couple years ago. I believe the cost was about $200,000. It might be more than that now because we did increase the overload pay, but the price tag was somewhere around $200,000. I know that there might be some issues with the ERP that might make this difficult in payroll, but I mean, if it would be easier to just do, like, if you have 16 credits, just do like a supplemental pay of that 1 extra credit, those 15 contact hours at the end of the semester, that would be fine, as opposed to trying to get it in each pay period. You know, we're open to the timing of it, but we think that faculty should be paid for their work at an equal rate. Okay, and our last proposal is our salary schedule.
Second, Kayla, I'm trying to find it.
Oh, I put it up,
Oh,
Gary.
okay.
I had this one handy.
Thank you, because I can't.
Okay, all right. Then I can click on things. So this is all of the faculty, their hire date, their title, their degree grade, their wage now, the years of experience credited at hire, which a maximum of 8. So if you were a K-12 teacher, a college professor, a nurse, whatever, before you were hired, you can get a maximum of 8 years of service, 8 years of experience credited, which gives you a larger starting salary. We have the years employed based on the hire date, which gives the two put together as the years on schedule. We over here have a salary schedule. So we are proposing for faculty with 0 years of experience and a bachelor's degree, which is F3, a minimum salary of $50,000. And based on our economic data, we think that is fair. We are proposing for each degree grade an additional $2,000 starting salary. So F2 is master's. The starting salary for that would be $52,000. F2 15 is a master's plus 15 graduate credits, master's plus 30, and then the F1 is a doctorate degree. So these are the starting salaries. The current starting salaries are here. Right now, faculty with a bachelor's degree and 0 years of experience start at $36,000, which is really not a living wage. We are also proposing for each year on the salary schedule, 1.75% for a bachelor's degree. For master's, every year you get a 2% increase in your pay, and for a PhD, it's 2.5% increase. So that gives us this table. So it's a salary schedule, which is something that faculty are in favor of. And you can just basically say, okay, I have a master's plus 15. I was credited with 8 years of experience at hire, and I've been here 6 years. So I'm at 14. So my salary would be $69,855. This spreadsheet uses XLOOKUP in Excel to find the square on the salary schedule that's appropriate for that person based on their years on the schedule and their degree grade. So this is their new salary. Everything is calculated, and the raise is also calculated here. Some of the individual faculty did not have their years credited at higher. So I sent this spreadsheet out to all faculty and asked for any corrections or additions. And the green ones are where there was not available. People said, okay, I had 3 years, I had 0 years, whatever. The red ones were incorrect. So for instance, I know I was hired in 2008. It had me hired in 2015, which is I think when I switched to a master's plus 30. So some of the red ones had to be corrected. The yellow ones were just confirmed, like, yeah, that information is accurate. And then otherwise it's just nothing. So this number here is the total cost in salary additions based on a $50,000 minimum salary, $2,000 per increase in the base salary for degree grade, and the increase in percentage based on years on the schedule. I think Brian can maybe get a more accurate number, but I think it was about an 18% additional for the FICA, Medicare, stuff that is beyond the salary that the college has to pay. So the price tag for this proposal is $2.5 million. Based on Brian's proposal, or Brian's budget presentation at the Board of Trustees meeting this week, we have $6.3 million in additional recurring budget. So my understanding is our budget allocation from the state is up 47%, which is great. And some of that money, I think, is allocated to certain programs and things that need to be taken care of. But overall, we have $6.3 million in recurring funds that we can spend. On Brian's budget presentation, after we look at increases in healthcare costs, property insurance, pension, and so on, there was $4.3 million carved out. And that was including, from what I could figure out, a 5% across the board raise for all employees. And so that leaves a $2 million that is additional that can be used for what we think is important. And so we are proposing a $50,000 minimum salary for our faculty, and then going up from there based on years of service and experience and degree grade. This spreadsheet, you can change anything in these yellow squares, and it will recalculate the total cost. So Magic Excel, you can change this to $100,000, and then the salary would then go up to $3.5 million. Okay, so it fixes everything for you. Everyone's salary is calculated, the total cost is calculated. You can change the starting salary, and you can change these percentages, and then everything is done for you. Oops. Nope, that's not right. Too many zeros. Okay, any questions on the salary schedule?
I will say one thing in addition, Caitlin. We've discussed the idea of compression for multiple years. And part of our agreement was at our last meeting that we would discuss compression. This is one way of dealing with compression, is getting some of those people who are making kind of embarrassing salaries to start out with, to get them up to less embarrassing numbers. And so we think that this is very viable to do this.
Also, this salary schedule benefits our mid-career faculty the most, because they're the ones that have been affected by salary compression the most. So faculty that have been here more than this only goes up to 20 years of service. So faculty that have been here decades, their raises are comparatively smaller, the percentage is smaller. And faculty that were just hired already have their years of experience going into their base salary. So it's really the faculty that are kind of in their mid-career that have given years of service to the college, but have not seen raises based on our budget from the state.
So Caitlin, a couple questions for you on that
Yeah.
other tab where it had the years and experience.
Mhm.
So what you're doing is you're giving them credit for the years that we already gave them credit for when they hired.
Yes.
So if they came in with 8, so then we already paid them for the 8 higher when they came in.
Right,
you're-
and that
then
is
you're counting it
already,
again.
no. This is, so this year's credit at higher is what their adjusted wage, or, their wages right now. So it's just saying it's, their raise is not based on what they're making now. So everyone's getting a different percent, everyone's getting a different raise. So
But if
whatever
you
you're
go-
making now is, it doesn't matter. We're
If you
putting
go, if
you,
you go on that line there where you were before, so if we walk through, and it has, they're making 49,000 with 8 years that they got credit for coming in. They've been
Right.
here 6. You're saying the formula is now saying 14, so you're giving them, we paid them for 8 years coming in, but now you're adding 8 years onto the total into your calculation.
no, because this number, $67,000, their new salary, has nothing to do with what we're currently paying them. This number here, 67,268, is based on F2 and 14. So F2 and 14 is 67,268. So we're not worrying about what we've credited them now. We're putting them on a new salary schedule. So this means that faculty that have been here and have not been getting raises would get those raises, but faculty that were credited at higher is just, it's not basing on our past. It's putting us on a new
Essentially.
schedule. Does that make sense?
It is. It sounds like you're essentially what you did is took the numbers and you scrapped the existing classification plan. You used all of the existing history and said, here's the new model that we're proposing, regardless of what was credited in the past.
That is correct.
Exactly. So the number raise and the percent raise is different for every person. So if you look at the percent, we can do the percent calculations here. So equals that divided by that.
And change percentage.
Everybody's getting a different percent. And some of these are quite high because these are basically accommodating for the fact that we went a decade without any substantial raises. These numbers can be manipulated. We're willing to negotiate these. But instead of kind of keeping that legacy of salary compression, we're putting everyone on an equal footing. Everyone is getting a salary based on their years of experience and based on their degree grade, and we're just kind of starting over. This is not asking for a commitment to a 2% raise per year. We would like to renegotiate salary every year, but this is our way of addressing the issue of salary compression and giving everyone fair, because there's a lot of inequities in what people's salaries are right now.
One other quick comment though, on the benefits. The benefits are now up to 19.65%.
Okay, we can change that. Oops.
So
And to do the math on the presentation that you talked about that I presented.
Yeah.
Again, if the governor approves the budget, we'll be receiving that 9 million, but again, we had a 2 million decline in revenue.
Right,
So we showed 4.3, but that didn't include, now summer was down another 300,000.
Yeah.
So that was, we were down from 6.3 to 6. And then when you looked at the bottom line, it said we had the certain amount, we had 4.3 million we were allocating. Again, you're shortening that by another 300,000.
okay,
And the college was taking, instead of budgeting revenue down, we budgeted revenue based on actual this year for next year to maintain revenue enrollment. If we were building a contingency reserve, if enrollment declines by 9%, that's taking another 1.1 million of that money that you're kind of claiming is available. And we're also taking a conservative approach of proposing a contingency up another 900,000. Because between insurance next year, they're talking 10 to 14% increase. Would be $500,000. And then some of the other just regular inflation increase about wages is almost $900,000 that we would have to come up with next year. And again, the likelihood that we're going to get funding like we've gotten the last 2 years again is pretty much 0 to none. So we're trying to reserve up to sustain, the budget that we currently have. Again, the intent is if enrollment at least flattens out, then again, it gives us money next year to have money to look at giving increases next year. But if it doesn't, then really, this is it. We gotta give raises this year and there's really nothing left going forward until we get, substantially increases again. So we're trying to approach it fairly conservative that way so that we don't have to reduce workforce if, we continue to sustain enrollment declines. One thing in your model too, you got to remember though, is you've excluded out of here 26 positions that are vacant. So
Okay.
those have to go up to the minimum of the scales. And what I usually budget for in the scale when I budget for that is the master's plus 15 given 8 years of credit. So that's what I usually budget for those vacant positions. So that's quite a bit of additional money that you're not included in here also.
Yeah. Well, this number we can negotiate, and we certainly appreciate that the administration is careful with our budget. We don't want reckless spenders. We appreciate how careful the administration has been with our budget. But at the same time, if we have 26 vacant positions, we need to be able to attract people to hire them, and that's a lot of positions that's vacant.
Correct. I think
Having-
17 of them are nursing, which we badly need.
Exactly. So having a minimum salary, this is adjustable. We can negotiate this, but I think we really need to work on retaining our faculty that we have and attracting new faculty. And with a $36,000 minimum salary, that's not attractive to someone with a bachelor's degree in nursing.
Now, when we did the staff model, and we used the years of experience within that specific position as the way we used it with staff. We only applied 1% for each year of that service. So just, that's kind of how we did staff.
Right. But right now, when someone starts with their experience, a faculty member gets 2% or it's somewhere around that
Mhm.
per year of experience credited at higher. So
Yeah,
that's where
okay.
that salary compression comes in. If you got 0 years of experience when you were hired, and now you've been here 8 years, someone who hasn't been here 8 years and gets hired with 8 years of experience makes more money than you do, even though you've been getting 8 years of experience at our institution.
But then when
Don't
you look at the scale that the first 8 years, you would get that percentage, but then after that, possibly 1% across the board. So that's, it's fairly treating people for the 8 years.
Can you explain that again?
So if you like you're saying, if you're trying to recognize, I put somebody in this new scale, I want them to have 8 years experience. So if somebody walks in the door tomorrow and has 8-year experience, they would come in at the same rate. But then if the person had 8 years experience come in the door plus 2 years, I'm saying maybe at the 9-year mark, the increase would be 1% for each year experience.
So on this
for the
salary
existing
schedule,
people, yeah.
these increases would be 1% per year.
Yeah. Because I see what you're saying of you're trying to make it so somebody at least gets 8 years into it, because if somebody gets hired the next day, they're going to get applied the 8 years.
Right. I think this is a very fair way of evening out the salary for people's years of experience and their degree grade. And it's individual for each faculty member. It fixes, there's certain faculty who've been here for decades. They got raises, 20 years ago, there was a raise every year. And then the past decade, we've had very few raises. And so it's been kind of messy, right?
Mhm.
What anyone's given salary is dependent on a lot of different things. Whereas just getting everyone on a salary schedule just levels the playing field. Your salary is based on your number of years you've been teaching or, working, and your degree grade. You have the opportunity also to move up in the salary schedule. So if you have a master's plus 30 and you earn a PhD, you would also get an increase in salary. That's another issue about this. Or if you get an additional 15 credits, you'd be on the next lane. But like I said, we want to negotiate this each year. We're not committing to a particular raise per year or per degree grade. But
'Cause
this
what
would
if-
be a way to address all of those issues with inequities in people's salary.
So what if somebody was in a certain grade for like 7 years, then they've finished their PhD, but then technically if they were at the college 7 years, you're gonna give them 7 years credit on the PhD schedule.
Correct. That's the only way to do this is, so if you've been here 19 years and you get a PhD, then you actually get a bigger raise for your PhD than if you've been here 2 years. We could, change this percentage to 2, then that would be the same amount of raise per year. But you would also be giving someone credit later in their career for earning a PhD. Yes, they would jump a lane.
Because the other way would be just give them the credit for the years they were in each grade and figure out what amount that is. And then figure
Yeah.
out the total.
That would be another option, but this is very simple. You just
Mhm.
have your X lookup table and you figure it out.
Well, yeah, again, like we always say though, simple doesn't always mean equitable. So we always want to make sure we're equitable.
Right, and a flat percent raise would not be equitable. It would continue the current inequities. So that's what we would like to get on a salary schedule to kind of start fresh. And then from here, we could have percentage raises, which would be very simple. But this is getting everyone on an appropriate salary, given their commitment to the college and their level of education.
A couple questions. One, I think you mentioned a couple times. I just want to be clear. So you're not proposing that there be a kind of a step plan that each year you would move up one of your grades on the left-hand side. This is more just for slotting current personnel and new hires in today, and then each year we would negotiate whether or not you would get more. Is that
Correct.
accurate?
So we're proposing this would be a 1-year salary compensation package. We would prefer to reopen compensation next year, whatever our salary negotiations or unfair labor practice is at. We would prefer to negotiate salary for each fiscal year.
Brian, Caitlin, can I ask a question regarding reopeners on a year-to-year basis? I know that it is a good strategy to adopt, but oftentimes when you're at times of plenty, it's easy, obviously to have that negotiating, putting this item on the floor. In times of famine, however, it becomes difficult because people may still want to make sure that they have an increase added. What strategy is at play here when, or if, because the college is we're not gonna bat 100 here. So what's the strategy for when the college is not in times of plenty? How does that work when we come to the table to negotiate and there's no there?
I guess we would cross that bridge when we get to it. I mean, if there's no raise, I mean, that's a possibility, but we want to just start fresh here.
Understood.
And Darrell.
Yes, sir.
Just let me mention, if we did agree to a multi-year agreement, and let's say we agreed to a 4% raise every year, then you're locked into that. And so next year or the following year, if budget's bad, you've already negotiated with us at 4%. So you're going to have to try to come back to us and try to get us to come down. So in some ways, it's better to do it year by year, because then we can be flexible. We can negotiate on those lean years versus good years. That's the way I look at it anyway.
No, absolutely. And I'm on the same page there, but I kind of want to highlight the fact is I've seen in my past negotiations, I've seen it when the budgets have fallen off. And at times, I'm not saying that, again, I'll take this out of context, but I've seen the other side take the position that, well, there's something there, so let's get it, but the numbers don't add up. And at which point it leads to a very contentious, or can lead to contentious negotiation process when there's nothing for any other employees, but then you have the bargaining group saying that, hey, well, we want something. Again, not saying that that's the position that UFF would take in this regard, but I kind of wanted to just put that out there for consideration.
Yeah, and if we have transparency of the budget and we can see you don't have any money, then it's not much use asking for the money. So I really think it's better to do it a year by year for both parties, because then we can adjust for good years and bad years.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way we could go out multiple years because, we still don't know where our enrollment's going. And like I said, we could potentially get back in the same 3 to 5 year cycle we were before of not getting enough money to really only just cover insurance and your inflationary increases without even touching wages. So, and
Yeah. And so
again,
this,
it's customary when the economy was good, everybody thinks, well, we should be able to get 3% raises every year. But even off the base we have right now, 3% raises, 1.1 million. And, inflationary costs every year, 900,000 on top of it, that's $2 million of new money you got to come up with every year. So I'm afraid we're gonna fall into that same funding cycle from the state. So, enrollment's going to be really key, in the next year or two. Did anybody have any comments on the grade drill or Stan about how it moves up to $2,000? How, maybe Caitlin, how you guys came up with the separation? Because I know the separation was kind of different in the old one where you went from 36 to 41's like $5,000 and then $3,000 and how you
I think
guys
we
came
just
up with that spread.
keep it simpler. Yeah, I think $36,000 is honestly kind of embarrassing for us to be offering full-time college instructors. So that I don't think $36,000 is an acceptable for starting salary in my mind, based on our economic data. So we just brought the bachelor's up to 50 and then kind of went up from there. That was our reasoning. So that's why there's a bigger difference between our current and the proposed for bachelor's degrees. You can look at right now, that right now this is proposing an increase in a $13,000 increase in starting wage for people with bachelor's. That, like we said, is negotiable. These numbers can all be changed, but that's where we're starting.
Are you, I guess I'm leading to, are you kind of looking for the spread to be the same, or the spread between whatever we agree to as the starting one, the spread be the same between the $2,000 between each of the groups? Or
That's open
are you
to,
looking to still try and get to a certain level for the person with the doctorate?
that's open to negotiations. We'd be open to changing that. I know that faculty want to be rewarded for professional development, for working on or earning additional degrees. So I know that it's very important for faculty for us to be able to improve our salary by pursuing additional education. The number we can talk about, but it is important for each degree grade to have an increase in salary. What that increase is, we can talk about.
Like I said, if you use that indicator you have of the 54,000, when I budget, I take that grade times 8%, or well, it'd be 16%, because I give 8 years credit when I budget. So that would be budgeting 62,000. My budget, I think it's about 51,000 right now. So that's another $11,000 times 26 vacant positions. Another $286,000 plus benefit. Because those are not included, only the filled positions.
Right, the unfilled, yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Let me kind of put you on the spot a little bit here, and assuming we don't have the resources to do everything that the union wants to do here in one full, all at one time, it seems to me, and I think I understand it, it seems to me we're addressing a number of different issues here. We're giving a raise to bring everybody up to what the union feels is a average standard of living, I guess, that should be required there. I understand that. And then we're also addressing the compression issues brought on by, what's happened the last, I don't know, average 10 years or so. those address two different things. And as we try and look at the budget and address those, is there, not that you have to have one or the other, but is there one of those areas that's more important than the others? Because it seems to me as we try and look at this and maybe present some counter proposals on it, that there's a million different ways to do that. And any one of these variables is going to change the numbers. Should we be focusing on one or the other, or obviously a little bit of both maybe is the answer I think you have, but is there one that's more important than the other?
I don't know, Gary or Caitlin, I would probably say compression is the bigger issue. We did get a 5% raise last year. So I think getting everyone on a grid, I think is probably most important to faculty. But even then, you could get everyone on a grid and just have a modest increase in the base salary, and that would still improve things. So, it doesn't have to be a $13,000 increase in our starting salary, which you could still have an increase in starting salary and a salary schedule and manipulate those numbers to get to a cost that the college is willing to propose.
Yeah, I would agree. Compression is a key factor that faculty want to see. But my preference would be to get a little bit of both if we could do that. So, yeah, I know, these numbers are higher than probably you guys want to see. But we're here to negotiate. That's what we're here for. So, we can talk about it. And if there was a way that we could get a little bit of both, that's better than what we have now.
I would say compression is the bigger issue. Right now, we have 60% of our faculty who are wage compressed. So well over the majority. It would be nice to get both, but I would also say wage compression is the bigger issue.
Okay.
We've gotten quite a lot of feedback that faculty want a salary schedule.
But again, a salary schedule to reset where they're in this thing, not guarantee increases in future years.
Correct.
Any other questions, comments? Obviously, we're going to have to discuss this, and as with the others, before we respond substantively. Any other questions that anybody not understand or need any clarification? I think on the years credited at higher, is that coming from what we think is the actual data that was used? I know there was some issue about being able to pull all that, but that's where
we got a spreadsheet from Durrell with all the information that they were able to look up. Some people, they didn't have the information. So I have emails from the faculty that responded for the green and the red squares, and I can share those with you for the corrections, which might need some research, but like I had 0 years of credited and said no available, but my hire date was also wrong. So there's some missing information and a couple inaccurate pieces too.
To that point, the individuals that responded with the hire dates, I can go back and again, that took me some time to actually peel through a lot of the data in the system to pull that together. However, the challenge is going to be for those individuals that are saying that this is the number of years that they were credited. It would be difficult on my end to update official documents to say, yes, that's what was credited, unless they have something that we're missing in files. And I doubt that that's the case. For some of those individuals that's been here for so long, when you start getting into like the 80s and early 90s, I couldn't find anything for them. But some of the newly hired individuals, there were some challenges with a few individuals that were probably within the mid 2010s or what have you that we did have issues with as well. So just kind of want to put that out there for consideration for those that may say, yeah, I was credited with X amount of years. It would be beneficial if I couldn't find anything, that if they have something official, that I would love to update their record, because without that, then I wouldn't be able to credit that within our system.
Yeah, I understand. We would, I mean, if we get to that, we would ask for documentation of your whatever experience and whatever way would work. But yeah, I mean, we would ask for documentation.
Yes.
Even Durrell, I don't think, do we even have salary schedules from back then that we compare? And I think the old system only went back so far, so those individuals would be on the previous system. So we couldn't even try and, find a salary schedule and tie that either, so.
Yeah, that was a
Pretty
challenge
difficult.
going back. The legacy system only goes back to 96 in most cases, and that still depends on what they were able to extract from the previous system into the legacy system. So some employees have, data going back, but most employees don't have anything going beyond 96. So there's a challenge there.
Well, we only have 4 faculty that were hired before 1996, so, yeah. And those, I mean, they're at maximum salary anyway, so. So, yeah, okay,
So then maybe one other question on that, then if there's a salary range, when somebody hits the max, the expectation is there's no additional increase?
yes. If you're making $98,000, that's like almost triple what some other people are making, so.
And that's what we do now, correct? There's a
Yeah.
cap on it.
I don't know. Terrell, you want to comment on that or not?
Sorry, no, I will probably have to take a look at all of this, basically. Obviously, we have to have some discussion, so I'm pretty sure I'll have more discussions while we navigate this whole process, but I'll probably come back at that time.
Because I think we have technically one faculty who went over the top of the existing scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to that point, it should be noted that we had to develop in compensation. There's a thing called TOP, or top out rule. I just labeled it as an over the max rule, basically. So I did not want to. A consultant would probably say that, hey, you don't let anybody go above the max. However, we were able to develop a process so that if an individual reaches 100% penetration on a range, that you still, you can give that to them, but it's a supplement more or less, basically. So it's less punitive to the employee. We would still want to replicate that same thing if that occurs with faculty members. However, when you're reporting salary, I would not be able to report more than what's 100% penetrated on a range. So I wanted to put that out there for just to kind of be open and for consideration if we were ever in that situation on the faculty side.
Okay.
All right, I think if there are no more comments on that or need for clarification, maybe now's a good time to do a caucus.
Yes, we're all our presentation is done.
Okay, and just for record keeping purposes, I just want to make sure I've got the correct information. We do have another session set in June, correct?
That's correct.
Just looking up to date here is June
Last
28th.
week, yeah, that sounds right.
Okay. All right, why don't we break off? It's 3:30. We can break into caucus now. We're gonna need a little bit of time. I would say, we may need the rest of the time for caucus, but we're gonna look at some of these other issues. I don't know that we'll have a proposal on the salary all back to you today. Obviously, we're gonna crunch numbers. We have been doing some of that, but based upon what you represent today, we'll want to do probably a little bit more than that, but we might be able to look at some of these other issues. I honestly don't know if it'll be better to present it all as a package or try and get some of the others addressed today. So why don't we do maybe a 45-minute caucus?
That's
And
fine.
at least figure out if we've got something to work on today and we can come back. If not, it looks like we're gonna have to continue to study it, then we can tell you at that time. So maybe plan to come back at 4:15.
Okay, that sounds good.
Great.
Deb.
All faculty are welcome in the caucus room. It's the personal meeting room for UFF PHSC in your college email.
All right, for administration, you should have the link for the caucus for our side, and Joyce can open up that hopefully, and we'll plan to meet there.
4:15.
4:15 back here, yeah.
All right, see you then.